our own workers here in the United States of America. That's what we are against. So we're here in this distinguished union establishment. So let's talk about labor rights. In 2007, I voted for the Peru Free Trade Agreement to ensure that Peru changed its labor laws, and they did so before we voted on it. We knew exactly what we were voting for, to comply with the International Labor Organization standards. Before Congress voted, before the deal went into effect, and this, I got to give salute, Sandy Levin from Michigan and Charlie Rangel from New York. They went down there. You can't pay for these agreements. You got to know what the heck you're talking about. And I saluted the country of Peru for having done what most countries in our trade deals had never done before. We must be able to verify Vietnam and other signatories of the TPP that they'll come into compliance on labor rights, and TPP takes a step backwards from that requirement. 60 cents an hour in Vietnam. Malaysia, a horrible record. These are the countries we're making a deal with. The American workers can't compete with anyone. But the playing field has to be somewhat level. 60 cents an hour is not somewhat level. Workers are prohibited from joining any union independent of the Communist Party in Vietnam. The nation of Malaysia has been complicit in human trafficking. Now, this was just in the paper yesterday. Yeah, it's going to get hot today out here, but you want to know something? We're going to make it hot for the House of Representatives when this comes up in 2 weeks. In Malaysia, apparently going to be one of our great trading partners. A gentleman named Joshua Wong, who I read some of his stuff, very interesting. He's a prominent democracy activist from Hong Kong. He was denied entry into Malaysia on Tuesday in what critics called an act of political censorship by the Malaysian government. He was scheduled to speak to a number of forums hosted by the Malaysian Youth Activist Group in cities across the country. He said Malaysian immigration officers at Penang International Airport on Tuesday told him that a government order barred him from entering the country. This is another country that we're going to make a trade agreement with. Thanks to an amendment by Bob Menendez, the current version of the bill prevents fast track from applying to Malaysia. We made a big mistake 15 years ago when we disconnected China's human rights abuses from our trade policy. Doing a trade deal with countries like Malaysia, who turn a blind eye to forced labor and sexual slavery, is unacceptable, should not be in our nation's policy, and yes, it is relevant to what goes on here in the United States of America. We never want to interfere with the politics in another country. But if we have to stoop down, and if we have to dumb down our own standards to meet other countries, then we're in the wrong business. I have serious concerns about the investor-state dispute settlement, the process which has been envisioned in the TPP. It must be clear that I've heard this debate. Fast track must address currency manipulation. Talked about it many, many times in the Ways and Means Committee. It's caused millions of job losses and contributed to wage stagnation over the past decade. I wish President Obama would listen to then Senator Obama, who made a big push to include currency in fast track when he was in the Senate. We are essentially letting China write the rules in our accepting an unacceptable status quo. I'm voting no, and that's one of the reasons why I'm voting no, and I want you to tell your congressman to vote no. Fast track has passed the Senate last week, and as I said, our two senators are very proud of them. They voted no. They withstood a lot of pressure. In '98, I voted no on fast track, and we defeated the bill. In 2002, I voted no, but it went through. As a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, one of our responsibilities is overseeing trade. I took part in the committee's consideration of this fast track legislation earlier this month, and I voted no in committee, as did most Democrats. I introduced a number of amendments to embed protections for U.S. workers and consumers in this bill, including strengthening food safety standards on imports. Stand on the border of the United States of America and see what the fruits, the vegetables that are coming into this country. 1 out of every 4 truckloads is inspected by random. That means 3 out of trucks come in without even being inspected. And the type of insects and bugs that come in, and by the way, most of our vegetables and fruits that we're eating come south of the border. And I love south of the border, but I want their food standards to be as high as ours. I don't want to take chances about our population eating food that is not safe. That was the first amendment I introduced in committee. That failed strictly on a party line. Well, obviously, this is not a party line I'm taking because the administration wants this bill passed. And I'm asking Democrats to have the guts to stand up. I'm asking Republicans in the House of Representatives, don't be fooled. We know where most of your money comes from. Fuzzy the waters, I'll tell you the fuzzy the waters, my vote is no because that amendment failed. And approving rules of origin that countries not party to the trade deal use to gain an unfair advantage. To question the sovereignty of any nation is reprehensible. Committee Republicans voted down each of these proposals, as well as a few more than a dozen others. We expect that fast track will come to the House within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Reports are they do not have the votes as of today. There are going to be all kinds of deals now. All kinds of arms. If you can't stand up to that, then you don't belong there. Well, your conscience. You're for this thing, vote for it. You think this is going to create jobs? You're going to listen to the junk that was given to us in '93 and then 2002? Then vote for it. Hey, we can be fooled. Unions have been fooled before. Congressmen are fools. I mean, they've been fooled before. You know that. Go along. Get along. We need to redouble all our efforts to fight this deal. I believe the people standing right here, you live in about 3 or 4 or 5 districts. You got to call your congressman. You got to get your friends to call your congressman. This does not happen overnight. You don't get a bell in the middle of the night, or the Lord taps you on the shoulder, wakes you up and say, don't vote on this thing. Don't vote yes. That isn't how it happens. You got to be heard. You got to be heard. You can't leave it to somebody else because it won't get done if you do. This is important for us. This is not only a trade deal with 12 other countries. This is a trade deal for our soul. We've given up too much in the past 25 years. Cities have been destroyed because of trade deals. Literally wiped out their economic base. And you may live way out in the hills, but what happens in cities affects you whether you like it or not. We ought to take care and look out and watch what's happening. I'm going to be there. I will stand arm in arm with you. We'll continue to fight for fair trade deals and a fair shake for the American worker. My friends, this has been a battle, both in committee and outside of committee. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't try to talk to 2 or 3 congressmen specifically on this issue, because every day we face between 25 and 30 issues. And you got to get that congressman or congresswoman to focus on this issue for a few minutes. Because right now this is the tail wagging the dog. We got to get the dog angry. We got to be yellow dogs out there. We got to say, we're not going to back off. It doesn't matter how many corporations you have in your corner. Look who we have in our corner. We have average Americans. We have the center of the middle class. Hey, look it. We don't need Einstein to come back and tell us what happened to the middle class and how come it's shrinking. We're the middle class. The workers in our factories, in our stores, in our streets, in our trucks, they're the middle class. The carpenters, the trades, they're our middle class. Those people who worked in all the plants that are now closed, that had to take 20% cuts in their pay when they're re-employed. They're the facts. You can't make up this stuff.